Rev up your engines!
Well, I just read an article on the real reasons for Saudi Arabia's oil production cuts, right? The truth is, the article talked a little about it, but, they try to obfuscate everything to make it more complicated, writing 5,000 words when you could say it in 50 words, right? What it comes down to is they're making hay while the sun shines, right? If they reduce what they produce, there'll be less, the price will go up, and they see the handwriting on the wall that everybody's against petroleum and all natural fossil fuels and stuff. So they're cashing in while they can, and if they lower the production, there's less on the market, they can get more money for it. People have been doing that for, look at the beers. The beers has all kinds of diamonds, right? But they keep them in vaults. They don't put them on the market. They say, well, there's only a limited supply of diamonds, so they're really expensive, right? Well, with oil, they're trying the same thing. The Saudis think, well, if we produce less, there'll be less in the market. People still have the same demand, so we can charge more money for it, right? That's the real reason. All you got to do is follow the money. Now, everybody's taking a gamble because, of course, if there is a recession, worldwide recession, look at China. The real estate's falling apart. Something's shaking economically. If the world starts to go into a recession and these guys produce less oil, that ain't going to mean squat because people aren't going to want to buy the oil and the price will still plummet. It won't make any difference at all. So you're always taking a gamble economically when you think you can control things that have all kinds of other factors involved. It's never a simple 1-to-1. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's a billion different factors all put in together. And then these clowns think they can affect the price of it by producing less. Well, in the long run, who knows what's going to happen. But that's their idea, that produce less, there'll be less, it'll be a more scarce commodity so we can charge more money for it, right? Well, we'll see what happens if a recession slaps them in the face. And then they're going to have to raise production if people aren't buying it. They're sort of, like I say, the Arabs are making hay while the sun shines. No one knows how long the sun is going to shine. If a recession comes, people are going to buy less. Big coronavirus, people had a lot less fuel consumption. The price of gasoline started to come down some, right? So, you can't control that stuff directly. They think they can, but it may end up biting them in the rear end. If there's a world recession and it's starting in China, they can do whatever they want. If people aren't buying the stuff, they're not going to get the money. But GM says, what about dual chains on new engines? GM engineers said they put chains on the front and the rear of their 2.7 turbo engines. Front's for timing, the rear is to power the oil pump and mallet shafts. He acted like this is common. Have you heard of this before? Well, it's been done before on other vehicles. Here's the thing. It is a turbo, okay? The turbo has more stress on it. It's probably not a bad idea to have one chain run the cams and another one to run the pump and the shafts. Now, if it's well made, the chains are in lubricated oil, so, away they go. They should last forever if they're made correctly. It's GM. I mean, they make a lot of mistakes, so you're only going to find as time they've had a lot of their smaller engines blow timing chains in those Ecotech engines. I see that all the time. If it's made correctly, there's nothing wrong with that design. The problem is these engineers are controlled by bean counters. You say, make this as cheap as possible. You make the chain too cheap or the cog that it drives too cheap, it will end up breaking, right? There's a lot of great ideas. It's not just a great idea that makes something great. It's the implementation of a great idea. And if you implement it with cheaper and cheaper parts to save money, no, it is not a good idea. But the idea behind it is totally fine. Many companies have had engines like that with different chains. Some of them will have dual chains set up. They'll have one chain that'll go to one part, and one chain will go to another part, and then the front they'll have two different chains. I mean, there's all kinds of designs that work perfectly well if they are built to the correct specification and not cheaped down by the bean counters. You say, you're spending too much money building those chains. Put cheaper ones in. And then, wham. That's what creates the problems. Today, we have much better technology. But if it is all implemented by cheap bean counters, you can throw all that advance out the window, and then you end up with a plastic piece of crap that breaks because it's cheaper to make. Jack Snipe says, Scotty, is a 1993 Honda Prelude a good vehicle? Well, it was a great vehicle back in 1993, 1994, right? But what are we talking about now? 31-year-old car. Years ago in Houston, I had a customer who bought one of those used. He said, oh, it's a classic. You know what it turned into? A classic money pit. He wanted to fix the air conditioning. You couldn't get a new air conditioning compressor. It was different than the Accords, and nobody made it anymore. So he kept buying rebuilt compressors, which were junk, and they kept breaking, right? And fuel injector parts weren't available because it was a limited production car. There weren't that many parts available for it, and he ended up buying himself an endless money pit, right? When you get a 31-year-old car, I don't care who made it, you're going to have things wear out. And the Preludes were oddballs. Accords, they sold millions. The Preludes, no, they didn't sell that many. And they were slightly different than the Accords. There were many parts that weren't the same. You can't get parts for a lot of the Preludes that you could get if it was an Accord. Let's say that was an Accord. I'd still give the same advice. It's 31 years old. The Accords had less problems than the Preludes, and all the parts are still available for the Accords. For example, I could get a new compressor for the Accord, but I couldn't get one for the Prelude. Joey says, hey, Scotty, what do you think of a 2011 Camaro SS 6-speed manual? Hey, you want a real screaming car? Hey, a lot of fun, you know? Absolute gas hogs, you know? I mean, they're going to stop making a Camaro soon, they said, because they hardly sell any of them anymore. They're not popular. American muscle cars are dying a slow death. Even Dodge says they're going to stop making their big muscle V8s, and they say they're going to make electric ones. Who knows if that'll pan out? You know, they're always trying to sell you a bunch of crap just to make money, right? That's a fast, classic car. You like driving it around, you know, horrible gas mileage. But you don't buy Camaro SS for good gas mileage unless you're insane. Scotty says, Scotty, what do you think of the upcoming Toyota Land Cruiser? It's much more affordable now. Yeah, because they're shrinking it. They said they're going to make it with a 4-cylinder. It's going to be a smaller vehicle. And Toyota makes good vehicles, you know. The only thing that I have a quandary about Toyota's recent slant towards Turbo 4s is I'm not a fan of Turbo 4s. I'm not. You want to get some grunt in between, and you don't want a V8, put a V6, but not a Turbo 4. The Turbo 4s, they just don't hold up as well. Even the Toyotas, they don't run as well. I've been in Lexuses that had Turbo 4s, right? I didn't like them. I thought they were kind of doggy. I didn't like the way they drove. Give me a Lexus with a 6-cylinder engine, smooth power, yeah. But you're buying a luxury car, you know? You expect to use up a reasonable amount of fuel. Putting a small 4 turbo doesn't save that much in gas anyways, because if you got a car like that that's relatively heavy, you put a 4-cylinder turbo, you step on the gas, turbo's going to spin up, and you're going to get crappy gas mileage anyway. It doesn't really make any difference. Just like the guy that brought me the Toyota Tundra that had the V6 twin turbo. Oh, it gets better gas mileage. He got 19 miles a gallon. It was a Toyota twin turbo V6 with hybrid on the Tundra big truck. And even with the hybrid, it only got 19 miles a gallon on the highway, which is terrible. So who's to say any of this stuff in the real world? Yeah, on the rating world, well, you're going to get 29 miles a gallon. No, you aren't. If you drive with twin turbos, then you're going to go fast. It's going to spin them up. It's going to rev, and the gas mileage is going to go down the toilet. And that's highway speed. I'm not talking about a guy really racing. He's just going the speed limit, 70 miles an hour. And he's getting 19 miles a gallon. So much for their hybrid technology in big trucks. It really doesn't work out. Well, Honda's just introduced a 5-liter V8 engine. You might think, oh, great, man, I want to get one of those Honda cars with a 5-liter V8 engine that puts out 350 horsepower running on the cheaper 86 octane gas. There's only one problem. It's a boat motor. It's a Honda boat motor. And they even have the computer set up in the system so that you can have 4 of them sync together. So if one V8 engine on your little boat isn't enough, you get 4 of these Honda V8s, and the computer system will sync them all together so they'll go great, and you can blast off using a lot of gasoline. Now, I can imagine outboards are extremely inefficient machines. Spinning a little propeller, they can go real fast, but they use up gasoline real fast too. Considering that it's $20-something thousand for a 150 horsepower one, and this is 350 horsepower, I can imagine this is going to be one expensive outboard motor. Well, don't worry about it. If you can't afford it, you don't want it anyways, right? Chi-Town Fantasy says, Scotty, are you surprised how big you've gotten? Yeah, I am surprised. I guess it's because I eat too much. My wife's trying to stop me. It's kind of going a little down now, you know. It's not surprising. What I say, calories in, you're going to get big, you know? I mean, anybody says, if you want to keep a healthy weight, there's only 2 things you have to do. Eat sensibly and exercise, right? Well, I don't exercise all that much, and my idea of sensible eating is eat whatever's there. So if she doesn't buy food and put it in the fridge, at least I don't go out and sneak it, right? If it's in the fridge, I'll eat it, though. It's fair game. If it's in the fridge, I'll eat it. So she hides stuff all over the place. Right? Every once in a while, if I'm in some mood, I'll probably start looking through the 2 houses and look at where it's hidden and find the candy and eat it. But it is not surprising that it got big whatsoever. It's the logical consequence of eating lots of food that tastes good. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.